All right, wonder people, whether you are joining us through the Practicing Positivity Studio YouTube channel, whether you're joining us from Facebook, wherever, and of course, wherever you are in the world, we are back. We are back without music, unfortunately. My equipment is failing me, drat. But I will re-earn my DJ Doc badge. Don't you worry about that. But let me just let you know where you are and what's happening here. So I'm Dr. Nicole Bessard, and I'm here with now, I'm so proud to say, a good friend of mine and a colleague, Javier and Llerena, who is here to kick off a conversation that I've been excited about now for a while. So I'll get to that in a second, but here's where we are. Welcome to the Practicing Positivity studio. And what we do here, you all, is we are really focusing on making this a dynamic learning lab. And as you can see in the lower third here on the bottom, or at the bottom of your screen, this is all about helping you build a lifelong practice of those tools, resources, habits, systems, and routines that give life rather than kind of help drain away. And we're not just focusing on what gives life for you, but what gives life for those around you. So you become a life-giving force, not only for yourself, but for the folks that come into contact with you. That's what we do in this Practicing Positivity studio. So I am here. I just want to make sure that you guys know you are welcome. Hit us up in the chat. Let us know if you are listening to this live or if you're listening to the replay. And also let us know where you are coming from. So get in the conversation, post your greetings, post your questions. And Javier and I are cut from the same cloth. We really believe this isn't about having sages on stages or experts at the mic. We all bring something of value to this conversation. We all have some wisdom bombs that we can drop. So as we're going through this conversation, I want you all to feel not just free, I want you to be encouraged to go ahead and add your mix, add your special sauce to the pot here, so that as we all are feeding from this pot of awesomeness, that everybody is benefiting and getting nourished. So if that's a deal, here's where we're going to go next. Our job in the next hour or so is to help you discover or recover those things that give life, that give zest, that give you energy and vitality. Remember, that's what it's all about. So today's learning lab, I did a little bit of a twist here. In the initial promo, I put appreciative leadership for our times with Javier and Javier Llerena. And Javier, I want you to introduce yourself in just a second, but I want us to twist it around a little bit, if that's all right, Javier.
Absolutely.
We have talked so much about this unique moment. And appreciative leadership, you guys may not really know what that means, but I want to kind of bring it in a little bit tighter. Positive leadership. And so, Javier, let you introduce yourself, because I want people to know this guy is a stellar coach. He is and I want them to know about your company, Reinvent Coaching. So I'd love, as you introduce yourself, to talk about Reinvent Coaching, how you came to that name and how you came to coaching. And what is it that you want this audience to know about what you bring into that coaching relationship?
Yes, great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nicole, for having me in your show. I'm so excited to be here. Your energy radiates positivity here. And for everyone who's watching us live, like you say, let's make this interactive. Let's get into the conversation as well. I also have to apologize. You might see a wire hair document behind the scenes here, but hey, that's the way it is in virtual environments here, right? We need to welcome everything that is happening here. So thank you so much. Reinvent Coaching. That's a name that I started 7 years ago without really knowing how I was going to put it into practice. I think that reinvent is the constant reinvention that we need to go through. I think is human beings, same way as organizations, we need to reinvent ourselves constantly in order to evolve to what is best. You know, always thinking of what is best in us and how we can get to what we inspire to be. So that's how it came about. I work with mid-level managers and organizations and what I call complete systems. And what I mean by system is every single organization out there is a system. It's a living system. And guess what? If you don't take care of each department, right, then your system is not going to work smoothly. So I always like to get a foot on the door there and start creating that environment for them that will we can talk about high performance, but I think it's more about creating an environment for growth, right? The positive
Yes.
growth that we all looking for.
That is fantastic. And that really sets us up, that last piece that you just said about creating an environment for that kind of positive growth. So Javier, before I get into our kind of our launch question for this conversation, what are some of the ways that you found, Javier, that are important to do that for leaders? And you also said something really important, taking care of each part of the system, each part of the organization. What are some of the key things that you like to remind or to maybe enlighten leaders about as they're trying to create that positive environment for growth in their systems?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's a great question. I think one of the things in you being such a magnificent appreciative inquiry practitioner, and we talk about this in AI, right? And then, hey, if you guys want to know more about AI, talk to Dr. Nicole, and she will tell you more about it later. But one of the things that we talk about is always pause, right? I think as a leader, how many times as a leader are you pausing? And what I mean by pausing is not just take a breath or do a quick meditation. It's really reflecting of what's happening internally here, right? How many times do we pause, center ourselves to really put that intention there? I mean, I think we're living in this hurry and worry society, right? And I see so many leaders and so many managers out there constantly reacting to what's happening in their environment instead of pausing. And the majority of the companies that became successful during the pandemic are the ones that took a step back, pause, and say, hey, let's take a rest and move forward with this at the end instead of reacting. A lot of companies that they were reacting to what the pandemic was showing up are the ones that fail.
Yes. And I just want to drop that wisdom bomb into the chat here. And this piece about, as leaders are thinking about, now let's get into this because I've been really excited, Javier, to speak with you about this topic. I want you to kind of set us up a little bit here. In your work with leaders around the world, as we are coming out of this pandemic, at least some parts of the world are coming out of this pandemic, what is the moment that leaders are looking at? Kind of where are we now? Describe the terrain for us.
I think there's a couple aspects, right? I think there is the leader that wants to go back to the way things were, and that's when there's a lot of stress. You can see a lot of stress. You can see a lot of resistance within the system, their employees, their teams, department, and so on. And I think there is the leader that went through a transformation, because we all went through a transformation during the pandemic in our leadership skills. We went from the micromanagers went through, hey, being micromanagers to realize that they cannot be a micromanager anymore. So they need to transform into something different. And then you have the leaders that they were leading amazing teams and they learn new ways to create inclusion, to create connection with their employees, to create intimacy, right? To keep their teams engaged. So how's the terrain looking right now? I think we hear this hybrid model. I hear all the time, all this mid-level managers, and we're talking about from companies to Fidelity all the way to, the mom and pop restaurants. What is the hybrid model going to look like? How are we going to function in this hybrid model where there's going to be some employees that might say, hey, I don't feel safe going back to the office. I'm going to stay here at home. How can we create these environments where we are bringing together the good old office that leaders used to go to, and then we include the hybrid component to it to make it a functional company again. So I think that's one of the biggest terrain that we're having. Another thing that came out in my recent conversations is a lot of employees are having that transformational moment and realizing that I want to do something different for the company. Well, I want to grow in these areas of the company. Well, I want to contribute this way. Well, I don't feel hurt. I don't feel that we have psychological safety. Where are we going to implement that? I don't feel inclusion in the companies. So they need to, HRs and leaders are dealing with those issues as well, because they're great problems to have, because that will lead us to a more robust environments moving forward.
Well, and I'd love to hear, as you are working with your clients around this, Javier, what are some of the pieces? Because I heard two distinct things that I'm also seeing in my neck of the woods in working with leaders and managers. What are we going to do about this hybrid thing? Right now, previous to COVID, it was kind of a, we don't really have to, that doesn't work, even if we're not really sure. Nobody really knows how that's going to work. Well, now we're a year and some change in, and folks, in some cases, as you noted, some folks excelled beyond what they were doing pre-COVID in these virtual environments. So certainly leaders are wrestling with this as well. And then the other piece, we knew employment engagement was an issue going into COVID, but you really spoke about it. It's kind of like an issue on steroids now, right? Where employees are really kind of stating with either their mouths or their feet, I want to go somewhere else where I can be included, where I can really make the contribution that's kind of in my heart to make here. So here's my question for you. After just restating what you shared, what are some of the coaching, what's some of the coaching that you give your leaders around kind of managing? Let's start with, in any case examples that you can share, because you are a phenomenal storyteller, around guiding your leaders through this new terrain about this hybrid environment. And how do they, as you said, create the conditions for a positive work environment when they're really in their own new terrain, about how to lead that?
Yeah, and thank you for your compliment. I think, and this might sound cliche, or it might sound kind of, when we talk to C-level or when we talk to managers, when I talk about self-compassion and being grateful and being content, those are kind of too soft for them to hear that. But I think gratitude, full gratitude, is the key, right? That leads to really open up to what is coming next. Have complete, full gratitude, because that's when we connect. That's when we accept. That's when we open up to what it is right there. And the self-compassion comes from really recognizing your strengths. When I talk to mid-level managers that are going through this transition period, I say, hey, let's do an inventory of your strengths as a leader, because that's how we're going to work on, because the strengths that you have now are going to help us build the future that you inspire. The other thing that I always encourage leaders is you need to open up the conversation. And what I mean by that is it's not a one-way street anymore. It's not like you used to go and delegate and do your sales meetings or your meetings, staff meetings you used to do. It needs to be an open conversation, right? And let people into the conversation to create that future. It's so interesting how I see so many people telling me, I'm waiting for HR. I'm waiting for HR. I'm like, all right, once you guys get together and define how the hybrid model is going to be the best option for growth for your company, instead of waiting for HR to go through whatever local government or state or federal guidelines, once you go out there and say, hey, this is how we're going to grow as a company. And I think mid-level managers, that's my audience, that's what I work with. And so you need to open the conversation instead of really waiting, or you in one-way street defining what it is. So gratitude, self-compassion, open the channels of communications to be two ways.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I want to also talk with you because you said something, you phrased it in a way that I thought was particularly powerful. You said opening up the conversation, so that you use this phrase, I'm sorry, you connected it to doing an inventory of strengths so that to build the vision you inspire. Have you seen, and I'm thinking about this other piece that's kind of a part of our new normal, around really engaging employees around their purpose, around their sense of mission, and even their own sense of inclusion. So how are you helping your leaders be able to really step back and cultivate those skills? And by the way, what are those skills? How can they start to build those skills up and inspiring?
I met a couple months ago. I interviewed an amazing. I think he's one of the thinkers out there in regards to leadership, and he gave me this. He shared with me this story about the plant orca, and how he says, "Hey, look at this orca and tell me in which environment that okra will grow bigger." And so there was a
Yes.
pot, right? Same soil, same sand, so excuse me, soil, sun, same water, everything the same. And then there was a bed, same soil, same water, same sand, the sand, same light, the same. And then there was another environment which is next to a fig tree that is growing tremendously. I mean, it's just flourishing, the fig tree. So he said, which one you think the okra when at least 5 times is bigger? So I say, I have no clue. He goes, the okra tree grew 5 times bigger next to the fig tree. And the reason why is if we don't have the right environment where we can grow, we're not going to go 10x, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of environments where either, that's why you as an exceptional Appreciative Inquiry practitioner and consultant, you go to these companies where the environment is so toxic that it's consultants, we go there thinking that we're going to create miracles, but top are not really opening up the door for us to have an open conversation and really define the future of that organization. That environment is toxic. So you're not going to grow. You're not going to get to that 10x. You need the right environment in order to grow. And I think the work that you do as well, we help co-create and co-design with these groups to create this amazing environment for growth, right? Right now, I am part of an initiative in Latin America called ALMA, which is an academy of appreciative inquiry. And we are teaching and we are sharing and letting people experience appreciative inquiry. And my growth has increased tremendously. Why? Because I'm in an amazing support system. The environment is helping me grow, is helping me challenge myself. I feel inclusion. They're accepting me. They're challenging me in a way. They recognize my strengths, their psychological safety. And guess what? You grow. But if you don't have that environment, I tell a lot of people that come to me and say, I'm going through a career transition. Well, it's changing the environment that is going to support you for growth.
You know, there are two things that I love about that example. You said the okra tree next to the fig tree. So part of seeing that 10x growth, as you said, is being in an environment where it's healthy, but also being around other living beings that are growing exponentially.
That's right.
So there's that environment, but just being in the atmosphere where that kind of growth is happening. So leaders, I'm underscoring this point as you're listening. How do you create a breeding ground for exceptional leadership amongst your whole team? And so Javier, you just listed off multiple things that you're experiencing with Alma. And by the way, if you could, Javier, because I'm learning Spanish, but I'm not quite sure of myself on this one. Alma means what?
Alma means soul, right? And the reason why that the name doesn't come from me, it comes from Santiago, who is one of the partners on Alma. And Alma, right, when you kind of break it down, means soul, and when you
Yes.
break it down, is academia. Uh,
You can
it's
say it
more.
in Spanish. Put it out. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Academia de Indicación Apreciativa de América Latina. So it's a whole. So we use Alma because it's soul, and that help us identify who we are on a deeper level, right? Because
Yes.
that's and it's very interesting when you get into the Appreciative Inquiry movement, the changes that you want to make um, to society, to community, and an individual. And what I love about it, and it has some correlation with coaching, is that I'm not holding my agenda.
Yes.
I'm co-creating with you. I'm opening the door for you to come in so we can co-create together for a
Yes.
greater. Wow, what an amazing concept, right? It's not about me anymore. It's about us working together. But I think that's the full definition, to my understanding, of inclusion.
Yes.
That I'm being heard, I'm being felt, but I'm part of it with other people as well, that I hear them and I feel them.
So, Javier, as you are thinking about this, and actually not thinking about this, as we're talking about it, and you're thinking about your clients, here's what I want to be able to give the folks listening. What would be, if they were going to start somewhere, where could they start? What thing could they begin to look for? And then even what skill could they build that will help them begin to create this environment that spawns the kind of engagement and growth that you're talking about?
That's a great question, and I think I have a great exercise for your audience. I did this with a healthcare company in San Francisco, in South San Francisco, and they were trying to. It's very interesting. The leader was leaving for maternity leave, and she says, "Listen, I'm going to leave my team of 80 people, but at the same time, I want them to keep the rhythm moving of who we are, and I don't want them to lose identity." Say, great, let's do this great example. So we gather 80 people on a Zoom call, and we went over to what worked best during the pandemic as a team, and really create an inventory of the strengths of that team, and for them to come out with the 5 or the 4 top strengths as a team, right? They all voted, they all share, we all did pair interviews, and then we did 4 groups together, and then we all came out with an inventory of what really went well during the pandemic and the strengths that came out of that. And then people voted in a very good way, and then they pick 5 top strengths that identify them as a group. And then we move them into a more of a dream stage, right? Moving forward into this new normal. What are the things that, based on the strengths that we have, the things that did well, we want to see, and how we're going to welcome the new members, because they're going to grow their team quite a bit. What is that environment that we want to create for them, right? Yes. So they all went into a dream stage, and what I mean by dream stage, obviously, that they're not falling asleep. What I mean is that we really vision, and then we draw. There's some people that draw. There's some people that see, they collect images. There's people that see words, and then we, as a collective, kind of put together that dream into one, and that image. It's a beautiful process. And then from there, it's like, all right, going back to the future, what are the things that we need to start doing now in order to create that environment that we all want to be in?
Yes.
And they created their plan, and the lady called me yesterday and said, "Listen, I'm living so peaceful." I said, "Enjoy your maternity, leave, and I'm pretty sure your team is going to manage moving forward.
Yes. So I love it. That's all about moving. And I'm going to try and recreate this in the chat for people. Kind of, you all, as you're listening, this pro tip, what Javier was just describing is really based around opening up the conversation, going beyond the C-suite, or from the folks that are in my neck of the woods, human and social services. It might sound more like, going beyond that executive leadership team and really opening it up right to the whole group of folks to do this work around, hey, where are we? What are those strengths? I think you said, what's working well? What are our top strengths? And taking time to envision the future together. And finally, leaving it not as a out there kind of dreamy idea, but what can we do now? What can we do now to start moving us toward that vision? Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And that's why creating something visually is so powerful, because that team can always go back and use it as a reference. Right. That's why, there's amazing illustrators out there that create this amazing illustrations based on the dream that we all put together. And that is a reminder for everybody to see, this is where we're heading. This is what we want. What are the actions that we need to do? From there, obviously, there's another step where the team will decide who is holding the torch for that particular task to take over. And that you, as a consultant, as a coach, you go there and kind of do a follow-up and see how they're moving forward and getting there. The beauty of this, I think, is by you having this open conversation and really asking someone, their strengths and what worked well, we really getting to know people on a deeper level.
Yes.
Right. And I think a lot of managers, and that's another thing that we can talk for hours, is a lot of managers, mid-level managers, do not know how to have a conversation with their team.
Yes.
They do what I call, either they do a sugar-coated conversation, nice, or they're very to the point, or they're very parent-child approach, or they're more of, I love it when they say, I delegate a lot. No, you order a lot. That's completely different, right, than delegating. So we don't, and that's one of the things that, I know Felix is going to be here next week. That's one of the things that we talk about on Appreciative Feedback, is really understanding how to create those meaningful conversations to connect with your team. Because if we don't connect with the team, we're just living in a movie script.
That's exactly right. And I want to highlight something as you all are hearing this live or on the replay. Part of what we're talking about, you have to be in the center of the game. Remember where we started. Our premise here. Now, we're just asking you to go along for the ride with us for about the next half hour, whether you agree with this or not. Our premise in this conversation is a new normal is emerging. Some of what we have done in the past will assist us in how we kind of get in front of this wave, or we can keep reacting. That was something that Javier said earlier. Are we reacting? Are we using a conscious pause to craft a response, a conscious response? And I want to just, because I don't want folks to walk away thinking this is easy. When they hear words like positivity or appreciation, folks, they kind of associate a softness to it. So Javier, I would love to have you talk with folks about, well, I'm opening up this conversation, and I know there's going to be some not nice stuff that people are going to have to say. And you just said learning how to have a meaningful conversation. What can you share with folks from your work at Reinvent Coaching, your work with Alma, and other places around crafting conversations that have room for the things that are difficult, that are genuinely hard topics, but that still can be a part of this positive environment that you're talking about?
That's a great question. And I think one of the things that I work with leaders is before we teach them how to have an appreciative conversation, there is, what is happening here? What is the conversation that you're having with yourself? That's number one. What is the conversation that you're having with yourself? Because if you have a lot of self-judgment, or you have judgment towards your team, towards the organization, then your conversation is going to be very similar to that. So what is happening here, right? That's number one. What is the internal conversation? The other thing that we also is, how are we listening? There's so many levels, right? From active listening to appreciative listening. I mean, there's so many levels of listening. And also pay attention to body language, right? Body language as well. I think from there, once the leaders realize about their internal chatter, right? They did a study on positive intelligence, and they said that we usually navigate, I mean, we usually have 50,000 thoughts a day, and we usually navigate with 60% negative thoughts versus 40% positive thoughts. That's a lot. There's a lot of stress, a lot of judgment there. Going back to right, the hearing, right? There's so many levels of how we listen and how we hear, right? And how we are paying attention, and how we're paying attention to the body language, our body language, their body language as well. And then from there, I think it's there's something that I learned from an amazing master of appreciative inquiry, you know, John B. very well, is the crafting of the question, how we craft questions, right? It's so interesting that I believe we're in a pattern, in a script when we have a conversation, but have we ever stopped and thinking and craft questions? Another step further when we're talking about having a meaningful conversation and getting conversation is we have never took the time to really craft the questions, right? And I give you an example, but before I do that, I know this is COVID time, so I'm gonna put my dog down for a minute. Here, my goodness. So one of the things is crafting the question.
Yes.
And the other day, you know, now that things are open up again, you can see the good old Starbucks, you know, line, people waiting for the coffee. You know, somebody turn around, you know, they feel more comfortable not wearing a mask and so on. And somebody say, you know, hey, how's it going? And say, hey, what's the best thing that ever happened to you today?
Yes.
Right there, boom. It was like, what? Why are you asking me that question? And it got that person to think.
Yes.
And it said, well, a matter of fact, I did this, and that. Boom, right there, we're crafting a meaningful conversation. So I think the beauty of crafting questions, right? And obviously in appreciative inquiry, there's different models that you can use, right, in order to craft questions to lead people. And I think once you do that as a leader, oh my God, the exponential growth of it. And I know we have an amazing masterclass coming up next Friday with Felix that we're going to share a lot of resources for people to really take that with them and use it. I think crafting that, and that's the key, and then let the opportunities grow based out of that conversation.
Yes. You know, and I love what you said, because there are 3 things that you all that are within your control right now. You don't need to go and spend a whole bunch of resources that you may not have, or it's not something that's beyond you. Javier said, pay attention to what is the internal chatter before you even enter the conversation. What's the internal conversation that you're in? And notice your own body language, you know, and just attend to it. Remember, he started off by saying, taking the time to pause. And in previous conversations here in the studio, we've talked about the power of the pause, the power to take a minute and just kind of what's happening for me right now. And then the third piece, which next week is going to be very helpful, is crafting those questions. Don't just kind of show up on the fly. And I would say for 99.9% of the folks that I interact with in business and in every area of life, we don't really pay attention to the questions. We just kind of ask whatever's on our mind. And I love that piece about, okay, taking the moment to say, what kind of question am I going to ask? And for leaders, if my intent, and Javier, I want you to speak about this, if my intent is to create an environment in which my staff can experience exponential growth, how do I ask this question, or how do I offer feedback, for example, around performance that is not quite up to par? How do I do that in a way that tells the truth and at the same time still facilitates people really engaging the process and their ultimate growth?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I was thinking that came to mind is I always ask people, especially mid-level managers, scale 1 to 10, what is the psychological safety in your company? And some people say, well, yeah, I feel pretty safe. I say, no. Psychological safety is, depending on what framework you use, is breaking down into 4. One of them is, do you feel you can challenge the question? What do you mean by that? Yeah, in a meeting, do you feel you can challenge with a question to your leaders? And and a lot of leaders will take that personally, but it's challenging the question, not the person.
Yes.
The other one is your company giving you the ability to take risks? Because the more risks that you take, the higher the learning process is. And the other one is, do you feel supported with your team? Do you feel in your company that you feel supported, that they're giving you all the support you need? And the last one is inclusion.
Yes.
Inclusion. A lot of people don't feel it's amazing. It's right. Those 4 elements needs to happen in order for you to have psychological safety. A lot of people out there, they don't know what psychological safety is. They think it's just feeling safe. But if we as a leader understand and really cultivate psychological safety, oh my goodness, right? We are going away from the industrialized way of working, where you do this at this time and then you punch out, you go home and you come back and you do the same thing. We're transitioning into the new normal, which is, we hire you because you have a beautiful mind, you have great ideas, we want you to be creative, we want you to take risks, and we want you to open up. Why productivity slow down in companies? Because there's no psychological safety. So people do, hey, I'm just here for a paycheck. I'm going to manage to do what I can, and that's it. I'm not going to challenge the regime. I'm not going to challenge anything. I'm not going to help anybody. I'm just going to do what it is. That's why, a lot of government agencies feel that way. They're like, okay, because they don't promote psychological safety, right? And that, as a leader, that's something to think about. Hey, am I promoting psychological safety in my team, right? Am I doing that so they can be high performance and really create ideas? Open up the conversation to create a better outcome for the department, the company.
I love everything that you just said about these 4 dimensions of psychological safety. And you all who are looking at, you're going to come into, you're either going to get out of this conversation or you're going to go into the week next week. And as Javier just said, as looking at psychological safety, Javier, and you tell me if I'm catching this right, it is a core success factor for leading inside of the new normal. We mentioned a couple of pieces at the top, these hybrid environments, and how do I lead and manage inside of that? How do I engage my employees now beyond the paycheck? How is it that I create a more robust covenant, commitment, and ongoing conversation with my staff that's beyond you do your job and I pay you the check? So those 4 dimensions that Javier just mentioned are so powerful for creating the kind of space that allows people to really blossom, that allows them forward, and that allows you to have those conversations around the things that may be difficult. For example, right? If there's a performance issue, or if there's something happening in the agency that's just really impacting our ability to work together well, Javier, please feel free to riff on this. how do we utilize those dimensions of psychological safety to really help us manage those sticking points, the hard stuff?
Yeah, Felix, who everyone is going to see next Friday, we were talking about it, and he has a very great model, and I'm sure he has given me permission to talk about it. His model is more of a triangle, being upside down. The top is that nice, right,
Yes.
conversation, right? I'm not gonna step on your toes, you're not gonna step on mine, but at the same time, we're not really moving anywhere. But I will talk behind your back, and so on. And then there is on the left side is what I call, hey, we all bring our dirty laundry, and that's when the power of when I facilitate psychological safety sessions with teens. That's when we take the dirty laundry out and really talk about, hey, are we having psychological safety? And that's when the tough conversations happen. So it's really the way I see it is like it looks like families, right? If there's something going on, they all get together, they solve it. It's painful, there's tears, there might be some yelling and whatever. But once we get into the same page, we migrate to the other side. And the other side is a constant flow, because I know you, you know me, we know our strengths, we have created healthy boundaries, we respect each other, we co-create together, we doing everything together for the better of the team. And that's a transformational piece. And I think you said it at the beginning. It takes work. It takes work. It's not going to be a magic one exercise. It takes work. And that's why in Appreciative Inquiry, you got to stick with what comes out of the dream into a deployment plan. When we do psychological safety, if we follow back 3 months into the future, what happened to that team?
Yes.
If they implement what they were going to do, they're going to be so successful. They're going to grow in whatever areas of the organization. So there's the process that we go. So that process of really taking the dirty laundry out is very, very uncomfortable.
Yes. And here's what I want to say to folks that may be thinking about this, and you like what you're hearing, but you're like, okay, where could and how does this actually work, and kind of how do I get myself ready to do this kind of work? So I just want to hit that point. There is no magic wand for this, but there are powerful processes that you can put in place, like what Javier is describing, that will allow you to create these kinds of outcomes. So as you're thinking about this, what I'd love for you to do as you're listening, be thinking about and write down for yourself, what are the things that we simply don't talk about in my organization because we just don't know how? So everybody just keeps walking by it. We just kind of keep walking right by it. And as you're listening to what Javier is sharing, I want you to get a pinpoint for this is what I'd like to go to work on. This is what I'd like to use what Javier is talking about, and the conversation that's coming next week with Javier and Felix, that's going to be more active in a masterclass on the tools and practices and how you can apply them. I want you to come into that conversation with a sense of, this is where I want to go to work inside of myself as a leader, and inside of my organization as a manager, a supervisor, or as an executive. Okay, so just listeners, whether you're live or replay, be thinking about, what are the things that I don't talk about with my team? What are the things that I don't really talk about in my organization that might be a good candidate to really use these kinds of tools? So Javier, with that, knowing that it takes work, I want you to talk a little bit about, as much as you feel comfortable, what are some of the things that you're doing where people can learn more and build up their capacity and their skills to be able to do this?
So the things that we're doing, we have an amazing live course. It was before I share about the course, I was talking to a lot of facilitators, coaches, even professors, about how are we learning? What is the new normal of learning? Because what happened during the pandemic, a lot of people say, oh, we have online courses, and guess what? An online course will give you only so much. And what we're trying to do in our courses, which are live, not recorded videos and preset agendas, what we're doing there is we're giving you the experience, and we adding the mix of the cohort, the wisdom of the cohort. We call it the wisdom circle that gets together, because
Yes.
we acting as teachers and us at the same time as the students. So we have a course that we do. We're going to start a new cohort on July 7th. It's called Appreciative Feedback. So we are teaching leaders how to, the main idea was to help them really conduct a better performance review. And then we realized that this can grow into becoming better leaders and how to manage their team using the Appreciative Inquiry principles into our conversation, right? So it's a live course where it's not like we are giving you PowerPoint show for two hours and here you go. No, you're actually doing your work
Mhm.
in the classroom. You're experiencing, and by you
Yes.
experience it, you're going to learn it faster moving forward. And that's the new normal of education. The new normal of education is collaborative, people coming together, sharing ideas. The teacher becomes the students become the teacher, and then a live course where you're interacting with everybody and you're delivering the content for them to experience. That's the new normal of education. And if a
Yes.
lot of people don't stick to that, I think they're gonna see the pain, right? I and that's the way. That's why I get so excited when I talk about it, because each cohort that we do is a complete different experience, right? It's a
Yes.
complete different experience. So that's one of the things that we do as well, and welcome everybody to try it out. Or if you have any questions, they can talk to you. They can talk to me, and we can solve that to see if it's a good fit for them. One thing that I have to say is not going to be a good fit if you don't have a growth mindset. If you stick
Mm.
to the old management handbook, it's not going to work, right? You need to
Yes.
be able to have a growth mindset and be able to be open and flexible and be able to be transformed into tools that will help you navigate into this new normal, and help you as well
Mhm.
be open to evolve, because
Yes.
we are evolving every day.
Mhm.
embrace embrace being, say, hey, let's keep reinventing, right, and keep moving and
Yes.
finding ways and empowering people and creating goodness and impacting your neighborhood, your neighbor. I mean, there's so many things that we can do to create a better world, but we need to start with the epicenter, and the epicenter is right here, you.
Yes. Yes. And you just brought something up that this is such a great continuation from our conversation last week with Dr. McAvoy about leading infectiously. And if you all
Mm,
recall, one of the things that Dr. Larry was talking about was what we can learn from things like epidemic is how they grow and proliferate so rapidly as they create these opportunities for collisions where people can engage, interact, and exchange information in a
mm,
meaningful way. Those cells are incredibly mission focused, and so that exchange of information, there's no collision that's left kind of for nothing. And what Javier is breaking down inside of this training, it is all about, and I completed this training myself, and I can tell you all, this is a magic opportunity to help you expand from beyond better performance to truly better leadership,
thank you.
because you're learning how do I create those meaningful interactions and exchange of information that's on mission and that continues to build energy and momentum for the work
Mm,
that we're talking about. Managing the new normal. I know the clamor for wanting to go back to things kind of to be normal is strong and it's loud. But as we're looking at the world that's opening up around us, even that new normal leaders, it's all about doing that work. It's kind of like learning to surf. Learning to surf the waves. It could just be a little slight change that could make your whole experience very different. You're on the wave, you're on the water, or you're under it. So,
and the good thing about this pandemic, because I think for me it was a blessing. A lot of people say you're crazy. For me, it was a blessing. During the pandemic, I think my life went maybe 10x, 25x, major changes in my life, major changes all over my family. But and professionally as well. But I think if you embrace the new normal, I'm sorry to say this, but there's going to be another pandemic coming up. There's going to be other catastrophes going on. So imagine if you're able to navigate and build up on your strengths and really embrace and collaborate and open up to dialogue. Imagine when something coming up, which is coming up, right, will happen, then you are able to navigate well as well. So thinking about back to like it used to be, that's not going to solve anything. We going into what I call that problem solving, right, mentality, instead of coming out with outcome and results that we want for as a leader, right? And also, I just want to add one thing on appreciative feedback is it's on a personal level. So I always think that appreciative inquiry is a state of mind. Either you live it or you don't. You cannot just say, okay, I'm going to apply for this client, and then you apply in your day-to-day life. So I do apply appreciative inquiry in my life. The other day I was talking to someone and said, wow, you have such an amazing marriage. I said, yes, because I'm grateful every day for her. Because if I'm not grateful, if I'm ungrateful, guess what? She's going to see the negative in me, and I'm going to see the negative on her if she's ungrateful towards me. And then that's why relationships break. But every time I'm so grateful for her, and I honor her, and I open that dialogue, and I appreciate her strengths, and I talk about, all the good things that she's going to be doing and keep moving forward, guess what? My relationship grows. Same thing with my kids. I don't know, how was your day in school? I say, hey, what made you better today? And they tell me this, and and we have those appreciative conversations. So in a personal level, it will definitely create an impact in your life, because it's like I said, it's a state of mind, and it will help you also with any type of relationship as well. So from an individual level, I think it really helps you. And then obviously you can take that to the work level. And one thing, I don't want to go in a rampage here. One thing I always tell people, how many masks are you wearing throughout the day? And they say, oh, I'm wearing too many. I'm wearing one at work, one at home, one with my parents, and then I finally take it off, and I have whatever to sedate me, a drink to sedate me. What if you take those off and you are yourself in every single situation? Imagine that. Imagine the weight you're going to take out of your shoulders. So that's why appreciative feedback will help you, is letting go of those masks and become your unique, powerful self that you are as a leader.
And Javier, what I love about that, for those of you that just experienced a little like a sense of terror after Javier saying taking all the masks off and just being your authentic self everywhere you go. Inside of creating, this is the power, no matter whether you're the receptionist or you're the senior VP or you're the president and CEO or the chairman of the board, no matter where you sit, or you're the middle manager, no matter where you sit in the organization or at home, being able to create the kind of space in which you're talking about where your strengths are, what matters most to you. I'm talking specifically to those folks. You're either in a very toxic environment or you've never looked at yourself through an appreciative lens before. You've looked at yourself through a deficit model. And so you can tick off, almost if you were unconscious, all the things that you need to fix, all the things you need to improve, all the things that are weaknesses, all the things that are wrong with you. What Javier is, and it was beautiful, Javier, that this is our kind of that concluding question. The reason that is, or the concluding challenge, the reason that that's optimal for people to take that challenge, because everything that came before, learning how to see the strengths in you, learning how to find what is it that creates success for you, that all creates that safety around you, so that as you take the masks off, you know who you really are. And then I'm sharing that in community, so somebody's reflecting back who I really am and what my strengths are. And this is especially powerful. And now who's going on the rampage, Javier, right? It's wonderful if I've been pulling in a direction that really is draining my soul. It's wonderful that now if I'm creating an environment where people are doing this kind of authenticity living, this authenticity work, then I've got some support to help me kind of begin to think about what could life be like if I actually did the thing that gave me life, that gave me energy, that was helping me to kind of be in that sunshine of life.
That's right.
So you all, this is, and believe it or not, Javier has us closing where we began. One of the key issues that as leaders and managers you're confronting is people are voting with their feet. I need to be somewhere that's going to give me more than a paycheck. And so this conversation about, well, what are the kinds of questions that I ask and how do I go about creating that environment? That's exactly what this work is about. So Javier, we've got a few minutes left, and I would love to have you just share with people, because you've given us so many. If you were going to leave this group, this community of leaders and practitioners with one question that you'd want them inquiring into, you'd want them kicking around and thinking about, based on this new normal conversation that we're having, what would be the one question that you'd want to leave with them?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a very basic one. If you had the Harry Potter magic wand, right, how it might look like if you have no obstacles, whatever, no challenges whatsoever, how it might look like, that team that you always dream about. What are the things that you are inspiring to be and to do with this team, right? I think that will connect us to purpose, and then purpose is, obviously we can speak about purpose and the purpose, but is that how it might look like, right? A lot of people get what I call that paralysis on thinking, oh, I need to make a decision. Is it left? Is it right? I don't know. And I'm like, all right, take a step back. How it might look like. Put different scenarios. We have such an amazing mind. Put it to work, right? And let go of limitations, because obviously if you start putting obstacles and excuses, then you're not going to see how it might look like, right?
Okay, I'm trying to write this into the chat, you guys, because I want you, whether you're coming in on the replay or you're with us right now, I want you to be able to really think about that question and get a pen, get some paper. If you're a typer and you're better with typing than writing, go ahead and find a way to get this out, but dedicate that time. Use the power of that pause, as Javier started off at the beginning, and really think about, Javier, you said, what is it that you are aspiring to be and to create with your team and for yourself? Do I have it right, Javier?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Javier. Last word is yours.
And then the last one, man, is just love yourself. Love yourself 100%. Love who you are. You're here for a purpose. Regardless if you believe in a higher power, no higher power, whatever if you're in your faith, whatever, you are here for a purpose. And it's a good purpose. Always is. It's always to create an impact, because we are part of Mother Nature. We're part of this world. So we here for growth. We're here to create something. So let yourself go and love yourself, honor yourself, because you're here for a point. That's why we, in Appreciative Feedback, we work in yourself first, because you need to realize how good you are, all the amazing things that you have done, reflect back and all the challenges that you have overcome and how you done it, who supported you, what came out of it, what lessons, and then pay attention, because when you start paying attention, all the things that you have done, all the great things that you have done, you realize that you have more You have more in your arsenal than you might think.
Yes, yes. I love how you just said that. What are the things that you have in your arsenal as you
Yes.
are continuing to think into this new normal? And you all can see this conversation. We can't really talk about your organizational work without talking about you. Javier said it beautifully. You're the epicenter. As a leader, as a member of that team or community, you're the epicenter of change. You're the epicenter of what can be. And it can rest not in the delegation and telling, it can rest in the invitation and inquiring in community. So with that, I want to say, Javier, we are right at 1:30. Thank you so much. Let me see. You all can find Javier at his website, reinventcoaching.com. And you can also find out if you, and I'll put this up in just a second, if you follow him on LinkedIn, I believe
they can
Javier,
follow me on
find
LinkedIn,
out.
or they can follow me on Instagram, Mr. Javier Llerena. At Mr. Javier Llerena. That's my Instagram as well.
Okay.
And then they can follow me there. They can interact with me there. Love to see everyone that is watching now, or you're watching it later on our master class, because we definitely want to give you a lot of tools out there. And I think Felix is going to be an addition and a great addition to the whole mastermind. So looking forward to see some of you and participate and put things in practice.
Yes. So as you all are hearing, Javier and I both have mentioned this a couple of times. We're bringing Javier back next week. We're going to be back at our regular time, 12 noon Eastern. And we're going to have Felix, who is going to be, Felix Viloria, who is a strategic partner at Reinvent Coaching. And they've really put together a masterclass on these positive leadership, the practices that nurture the kind of environment that creates exponential growth. So I'm going to ask you, be back here, bring your team with you next week. We will be here at 12 noon Eastern. And this is going to be a wonderful occasion. We're going to do it for folks that really want to be in here live. We're going to actually do it a little bit differently. We're going to be in Zoom. So for those folks that are following Javier or myself on LinkedIn, send me a message if you want to be in the room so that we can have it be super interactive and, most important, super customized to what your leadership challenges. So join us in Zoom. We will be broadcasting or streaming live to YouTube during that time next week. So we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, Javier, for being here with your dog as well, rounding it out to keep it real for us. And
I think he broke like 3 pieces of bed spread, but it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
That's right.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you, Dr. Nicole. It means a lot to me to be here. Thank you so much.
This was phenomenal for me too. You all have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you next week. Music in tow. Be well, everybody.